This film is about forgiveness, it's about love, and it's about sacrifice.
I can remember talking to Mel when we first started Icon, and we were talking about material, and Mel was talking about the Bible. So that's got to be over 15 years ago when he first mentioned the Bible as a source of material for film.
You know, around about when we were soldiers, I remember we were on the set, and we'd be doing these big, huge battle sequences, and the Viet Cong would be running down from the hills, and Randy Wallace would yell, "Cut, cut!" And Mel would march off the set and stand over and look back at what he'd just done, and then turn to me and say, "We have to do the Passion."
Stand by! Action!
One has not had to go on a creative curve of getting around the idea of Jim Caviezel playing Jesus. He was always going to be the guy, and can't think of anybody else that could have done it.
I grew up with these Gospels, so it was very personal to me, and I wanted to do it right. I wanted to be the best Christ that there's ever been, or at least I had to make that effort and try to do that.
If you can say somebody's a perfect Jesus, I mean, he really is. And Mel was really good at working with him to sort of understand, you know, certain things about his character. And it was great to watch the two of them together because they both have, you know, a real strong understanding of the story, and were able to bring it to these characters.
The whole point of this thing is I wanted people not to see me. I wanted them to see Christ. While we were shooting the scene, one of our first scenes with Pilate, when we were alone in a room, he asked me, "Are you a king?" Mm-hmm. And I felt as if, even though I'm looking through my own eyes, it's like something came through me, and I stepped back and said, "Okay." We had already done this. Maybe we shot this five different times. Something happened in that moment. It just said, "This is the King who's speaking right now," and I just sat back and watched, and it was like I went on autopilot. And Mel said, "Whatever you just did, I want you to keep doing it." While I was on the cross, I was freezing all the time, the hyperthermia. The makeup hours were from 2 in the morning till 10. And then 2 hours of touch-ups during the day. You're always cold.
Oh, he suffered up there. He really suffered. I mean, to begin with, the poor guy had to get up at 2 a.m. and then start getting like airplane glue put all over his body, and then they had to glue prosthetic pieces all over him. And it was a very long, arduous process, and he had to exercise great patience. And he was fatigued. I mean, he woke up at 2 a.m. Then he was working all day. He was freezing out there.
It was complete prayer. It forced me into going into deep prayer with God, praying from the heart. And if I would not have been able to do it without that.
What could be the most painful thing? To lose your child, to see your son, your child suffering like Mary's child does.
There were times when, you know, I would operate the camera, I'd be behind the camera, and just watching her face, she could bring you to tears just by her, you know, her emotional expression in her face. She's really quite remarkable.
I liked the idea to play Mary Magdalene because for me she's so human. And I mean, I like to think that she was a sinner, and when Jesus saves her, it's like if he makes her aware of her own worth as a human being. And for the first time, a man look at her in a different way.
There's some real depth in her. She doesn't have a lot of lines. She doesn't have to say a word. You just get her. and you get her instantly like that, and she just lights lights up the whole frame. She's just perfect.
To work with Mel Gibson is a great experience because Mel is not just a great actor, he's also a great director, and he proved already that. And it doesn't happen very often to be both, you know. And he knows what he wants.
He's great because he knows exactly what he wants, which is always great in a director. And he's wonderful with the actors. I mean, for me, the greatest experience was to get to see him working with the actors.
I said, don't explain it to me. Just show me. You're a brilliant actor. Show me. And he goes, well, it's like this. Got it. I know exactly what he wants.
I've learned a long time ago never to doubt Mel Gibson and the ability of the man. Whether it's Braveheart, whether it's The Passion, whether it's What Women Want, I know the guy will pull it off.
What I thought was going to be the biggest challenge in this film for the actors and for the film was to speak this dead language that nobody spoke. These two dead languages, I thought that was just going to kill us.
Listen, Mel, decided to do it in an Aramaic and Latin because he really wanted it to feel like the period of time. I mean, it's false to do it in, with English accents.
What's fascinating about it is when you watch the movie, about 10 minutes in, you forget about the languages. You're more concerned about the visual. I mean, the visual brings you in.
So the concept of the movie, to me, is going to be like a silent movie some way, because the audience, they're going to understand what's going on from images, not from words.
Obviously, there's a certain captive audience with, Christians who know the story and are really interested in seeing it from a religious point of view. But for me, I think it has a really great impact as a dramatic story, having nothing to do with the fact that this story is the reason for the existence of a certain religion. But the fact is that it's a great dramatic story because it does, and it's also a story that's unexpected from the point of view that it's, it is unlike any other story.
This film shows the reality of sin, shows what he went through for us, how much he loves us.
And this movie is not going to be so easy to watch because I think when you come out from this movie, you're going to think about it.
I don't know if this will ever happen again, to make a film like this, just because of what this content is. This film, I believe, is going to bring Christians and non-believers to a closer relationship with God.
Listen, we would go to dailies and there would be, times in dailies where scenes would just take your breath away. But I don't think we really appreciated the sort of cumulative effect of the things that we were doing until the film was finally really put together, because it was really like somebody building a mosaic where, you put one little square block of stone of a certain color next to another stone, and then finally you get it all done and you stand back and you look and, it's this mosaic at Pompeii or something that all started out with just a lot of little squares.
I think the movie that we ended up with is probably much grander, much better than we set out to make. And I think that's due to the enthusiasm by the collection of filmmakers that came to the project.
Emotionally, it was a really difficult film to do, and physically it was really hard. Every time you're working on a specific scene, you're just so into the moment of that scene, and you're so struggling with all the various obstacles that are there, whether it's the weather or time or, the light disappearing or, the fact that, something has happened, some piece of equipment is broken and you have to improvise. There are always these things that you have to deal with that you're focusing on just getting what you feel you have to get that scene done.
There isn't anybody that didn't give their whole heart and soul to this film. Everybody that worked on the film has a piece of this movie in their hearts, and always will. It's affected everybody individually in their own spiritual life.
It's had a an interesting effect on all of us. I guess faith was something that wasn't really discussed around the office prior to the Passion. Now it's part of everyday conversation.
Now this movie has had an effect on everybody involved, and myself and my family included. My family is very much a part of this movie. You don't deal with Jesus 24/7 for a year and not be affected.
For example, with Judas, especially with Judas and with John, we talk about this movie, we talk about the faith when we on the set, obviously, but also in our life, and something going on.
There are many cast members and people that have really been deeply moved. Some have accepted the Lord since we've been here.
This movie and this character are changing my life, and maybe my faith is more and more strong.
You know, we've had folk here that have come to see the movie who have been hardened lawyers or agents or and people that have walked out and said, I'm going home to read the Gospels. I want to know more about the story. An atheist saying, I need to buy a Bible. People that have lapsed in their faith being inspired to return to their faith.
He showed us how much he loved all of us. Every time I was on that cross, I got to feel more and more how much my Lord loved me. And I got to share in this. And this film is only going to inspire people to want to go into those Gospels and read about what it really was like. And that's all we made here, to show his sacrifice of all sin for all time.
How is this movie going to affect the world? You know, if I didn't witness people watching this film and see how it affects them, I would say that, you know, probably won't do a whole lot. But you go to these screenings and people are just like, they're different. They're just ripped apart, some of them. Some of them are just inspired.
This film is here to reach all, not just Christians, Muslims, Jews, atheists, everybody in the whole world. Jesus Christ died for all men. All men, that means every country, every nation. You can think of every color and every race. If people don't come and see it, then, you know, forget about it. Films that get made are the ones that make money. And if this film goes off the charts, you're going to see a whole, plethora of films based in the Bible. You're going to see great films that have some sort of redeeming value. But again, if you want those kind of films, you have to support them. If you don't get behind them, they will not get made.